love to express how I feel about my country. Every time I look at Syria, I compare it to other European countries. I ask myself, we have everything we need to be a modern country. Why can't we fix it? Syria has so much beauty, yet so much pain. See, in my opinion, I was thinking that no sensible person would take such a risk. But this is the decision that we made, to be or not to be. That is who we were. See, it feels like war, but we use our cameras, and they use their guns. We are alone here, with no one to support us. To sin by silence when we should protest makes cowards out of men. The human race has climbed on protest. Had no voice been raised against injustice, ignorance, and lust, the Inquisition yet would serve the law, and guillotines decide our least disputes. It would be them. It would not be us. Starting with the self-immolation of Mohamed Bouazizi, protesting in Tunisia, to the real democracy protesters in Barcelona, to the Occupy movement starting in September, it's easy to agree with the Financial Times that 2011 was the year of the protest movement. But much of America has become desensitized to the impact of global revolutions and therefore lost the ability to recognize protest beyond camping out for a cause. This program explores the highs and the lows of protest, and it celebrates those willing to try and take a risk to turn the page on oppression. Poetry by Ella Wheeler Wilcox, The Protest. Articles by Time Magazine, The Year of the Protest. And a video transcribed from Global Post, a program on the protest going on. And now we are back here with our radio, The Voice. We have a lovely guest with us. He is Professor Wilson, going to talk to us a little bit about protest and basically what it is. Well, what we first have to understand is that once upon a time, protesters were the makers of history. For example, in the 1960s, they spoke up and marched for civil rights. In fact, they spoke out against Vietnam War. In the 70s, they rose up not only in Iran, but in Portugal. In the 80s, they spoke out against nuclear weapons and against Israeli occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. Protesters were the makers of history, but they were more than that. They were the natural continuation of politics by other means. I was studying law when the Arab uprisings began. I came home to Damascus to join a wave of people willing to risk their lives to openly confront one of the world's most tightly controlled police states. I saw everyone coming together, but there were many watching us. And are they security? Are they with us? Are they against us? But everyone looked like they were watching something beautiful passing by. It was like holding an oud or a guitar for the first time, never having played it. Suddenly, you find yourself a musician. I felt it coming from my inside, and I saw it in everyone just the same. So we told each other, don't worry. What can they do to us? They will just arrest us. So we filmed them when they arrest us to say that it is for the media. But they didn't arrest us. They let us die. And that was it. We are back with the radio, The Voice, and now, Professor, I really would like to ask you, what makes these protesters so different? from everybody else? Well, you have to understand that protesters have very different stakes at very different places. In North America and most of Europe, there are no dictators. And dissidents don't get tortured. Any day the Tunisians, Egyptians, or Syrians take to the streets and squares, they know that some of them might be beaten or shot, not just pepper sprayed or flex cuffed. These are real protesters. The Arabic regimes are all the same ruler who considers himself God, the same inheritance of power, the same injustice. All we needed was for this one spark to be lit. And that spark was in Tunisia. And it went through countries all the way back to Syria. That spark made the shift that we should take to the streets. So we chanted, "The people wants to topple the regime." On March 18th, the unthinkable happened. The Syrian people took to the streets and squares to protest. It was an unprecedented challenge to President Bashar al-Assad and his 41-year dictatorship. I chanted and I was happy, but at the same time, I was afraid. We were only 100 people. Now, Professor, tell me, after we've taken a look at who these protesters are, what makes them continue? What is it that makes them so special? Well, first have to look at history. History emerges only in retrospect. In fact, many of these leaders have come from the bottom of the pyramid, not the top, for appending and highlighting a global sense of restless promise, for combining the oldest of techniques with the newest of technologies to shine light on human dignity. The women with us tried to protect the boys because we didn't think that they would beat girls. But the security agents didn't have a problem beating girls. So they did. A few of us were arrested because we were trying to protect the girls. I was dragged by my hair 200 meters by two secret police officers. One of them dragged me by my hair and the other by my arm. They took me to the car and they started to beat me. 6 of them were standing around me and they started to beat me. The coroner in charge also beat me. All I could do was look around and they continued to beat me. They tried to get me on the ground, but I resisted. I heard a girl scream loudly, so I ran towards her. So they stopped me. All I could do was protect my face. But I didn't feel any pain. Therefore, I do protest against the boast of independence in this mighty land. Call no land free that holds but one fettered slave. Call no chain strong that holds but one rusted link, until the mangled, slim wrists of babes are loosed to toss in childish sport and glee. Let no man call this the land of freedom.